Hey yo, turn me up a little. We good. Hey y'all, the Prophet Charlie Black, a deadly combination. It's been long overdue, I know the streets been waiting. Which takes a lot of patience, cause you never rush straight. This was for the record, but going down history in the making. Hey y'all, the Prophet Charlie Black, a deadly combination. It's been long overdue, I know the streets been waiting. Which takes a lot of patience, cause you never rush straight. This was for the record, but going down history in the making. First it was Elijah Muhammad, now we the honorable black prophet. We been in our bag and out of our feelings, securing all the profit. And going outside, don't know what you hearing, so miss me with that gossip. Saying suck a brick of mop shit, let someone get out of pocket. Whoa, we come from different walks of life, but relate to the same cause. Sight and live a fight, laid up behind them hospital walls. They focus like a face, but like syringes sharper than the knife. Take a cookie from the jaw, grind it rapid in the bar. YBT would stay loyal, no damn miss a prop. Shots to my producers, King Jones and Sahab. Hey y'all with the alley-oop, I do him up a lot. Far from a corny nigga, I'm the hottest shot of cop. I had to boss up for a check, move my fam up out the jets. Draft some key players in my set, sauce with a blue cheese dabber ranch. I am a club member, you a guest. Speak of my name, better put respect. Step up to me, got a couple right. Fuck who got now, or who got up next? Yeah. Hey y'all, the Prophet Charlie Black, a deadly combination. It's been long overdue, I know the streets been waiting. Which takes a lot of patience, cause you never rush straight. This was for the record, but going down history in the making. Hey y'all, the Prophet Charlie Black, a deadly combination. It's been long overdue, I know the streets been waiting. Which takes a lot of patience, cause you never rush straight. This was for the record, but going down history in the making.
Hey, the Prophet, Charlie Black, Black Prophet, that's a fact. Down in history, and it's a fact. Deadly combo, niggas know that. Prophet, that's a fact.
Hey guys, I've missed you.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I've missed you guys. It's been a whole month that I've been away, and I've been thinking about you guys, thinking about not being able to be here on the show and supporting my girl. So for those of you who know, I'm glad y'all kept my secret, but for those of you who didn't, I did have COVID. And I am much better. So for those of you who have reached out to me, I appreciate it. And for those of you who missed me, I've, appreciate that too. But I'm back and good as ever.
I'm so glad you are back, Jennifer, and are feeling better than you were. So it's just a fresh start. That's all it is.
Yeah. Fresh start for the end of the year.
Right. We're going to let go of the lows from 2020 and carry on highs and set more highs for 2021.
Yeah, we're due for some highs because 2020 has been rough
for everybody. So I do want to wish you guys a happy holidays. We've had Hanukkah, Christmas. We're in the middle of Kwanzaa now. Whichever one you celebrate. And I think today's Kwanzaa principle is
Ujima.
And that means, for those who may not know, collective work and responsibility is to build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems and to solve them together. And I think we as Sickle Cell Awareness 365 embodies that principle. And we've been embodying that principle for 2020 and for years now. So I think that's perfect for today and what we bring to you guys, just period.
Especially the collective work portion. I think sometimes we live in each other's brains.
Absolutely. And it can be
I need you to live in my brain right now because apparently it's foggy in here.
Listen, we're gonna need each other today for a minute. So, but that's the purpose of us being together and having that awesome support system. We lean on each other for assistance. Sometimes you my memory when mine is failing and vice versa. So it works. It just works for the both of us. So we started this show, Do I Look Sick, to have a different platform to share our advocacy and education. And I think it was right on time, seeing as how the pandemic happened right afterwards.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right.
Who knew?
Right. Maybe we knew somehow. I don't know. But I think it was just perfect timing. And we were able to bring some of our events, our annual open mic, to you guys so that you can see how we operate and some of the things that we do locally. So I think this was just right on time. What about you, Jennifer?
I think so too. Hopefully, moving into 2021, hopefully we don't have too much longer where we're going to be, restricted to our activities, but at least we've built a platform for people to be able to come, ask questions, sit and listen, and be entertained for a while because, like we said, 2020 has been really rough, and I think it's been an outlet for me, even the times that we broadcasted and I was in the hospital, like that's just been an outlet for me. And I know it's been an outlet for you, and I know that our wheels have constantly been turning, trying to figure out what more we can do, how we can reach more people. And I think that we're just gonna, go up from here.
Yeah, amen to that. And we started this in the we started this in the top of the year with basically a history of what we do as Sickle Cell Awareness 365. So prior to this year, like I mentioned earlier, we would do things locally, like our annual open mic, like our sale talk, like our paint away the pain sessions. We've been doing things locally as Sickle Cell Awareness 365 for quite some time now. So check out that first episode so you can hear all about it. We're going to revisit some of our favorite moments from Do I Look Sick this year. You can catch all of it on our YouTube channel, Sickle Cell Awareness 365, on Manifest TV under Status Network, because just the small gems that we're dropping today, if you watch the whole thing, you're going to need to take notes because a lot of the shows were just that good. Then after that first episode, we went into myths and stereotypes, which are all too common in the sickle cell community. We hit on some of our most outrageous things that we've heard about having sickle cell.
And that was a doozy.
It was. And I wanted to show this clip of it starts off with newborn screening, but it also talks about one of the myths about it being only a Black disease. And if you watch, then you know that it's not just a Black disease, but a what? A Black disease.
Right.
So check out this clip of just how crazy things get with this common misconception.
Yeah, I am calling all the way from Virginia. This is Nishita. Hi, guys.
Hello. Thank you for calling. So what's the craziest thing?
So one myth, and you already kind of touched on it, that it's a Black thing and that white people are exempt from getting sickle cell.
Yes.
So that's one thing that I've heard over and over and over again.
Yes. And like we said, it's not a Black disease. It's a blood disease. So it doesn't matter what ethnicity you are.
Right. If you have blood, you could get it.
Right.
Yeah.
You can get it. So, yeah, I've heard that one too. And I'm constantly educating people that it's not just us. It's primarily in us, yes, but it's not only us. So, yes. And we have to take it upon ourselves to educate those who come to us with that information and correct them.
Yep.
And I'm glad you work in the field that you work in. Tell everybody what you do.
Oh, so right now I'm working in sports medicine. I used to work in labor and delivery, and I know that sometimes when we would have patients come in without prenatal care, they would not want to do a sickle cell screen on white people.
Whoa.
Oh, we're going to talk about that in a second.
People of color.
Right.
Yeah, and so they would base it, when they would do that sickle cell screen, it would be for Black and Hispanics.
That's so crazy. And the fact that you said that leads us to something.
Another myth.
Another myth, but I don't know if it's a myth or not, or if this is actually something that has happened.
This would be more of a stereotype.
Yeah. I was told by someone who works very closely with the sickle cell community, like back in the day when they were requiring infants to be tested for sickle cell, that they were testing all babies. And then some Caucasian babies were testing positive for sickle cell disease and sickle cell trait. And they stopped wanting to test because a doctor said to this person who told me this story, so this is like straight from this horse's mouth, was like, do you know how hard it is to sit down with a white family and tell them that their child has sickle cell?
That's scary.
That's crazy.
It's very crazy because now the kid is missing out on information or proper treatment because they're in denial about the disease. So
wow. I remember that story too, about the doctor saying how hard it was to tell a Caucasian family like their baby had sickle cell.
Right. And just them only testing Black and Hispanic people just kind of fed more, well, not kind of, but it fed more into the stereotype of it only being a Black disease. But hopefully by now, and I would think they have changed by now, that it's open to more people. It is a genetic disease regardless of ethnicity, race, whatever. It doesn't matter. Sickle cell don't care. So hopefully it's expanded past excluding Caucasians, and maybe they are more open to getting
accepting the fact that what the results would be. Well, you and I were talking the other day about the fact that the military is starting to test all of the soldiers for the trait. So that's a step in the right direction. But I mean, by the time you get into the military, you should have already known whether or not you had the trait or whatever. You should have been tested as an infant. That still should be the norm, but at least they're doing it there. And so maybe it'll become more widespread depending on the results of, the testing there. Maybe they'll look at it and be like, oh, well, maybe we should do more widespread newborn testing because of our results here.
Right. And that's a good segue into the next clip that mentioned how they were starting to test people in the military for sickle cell trait. And once we show this clip, we'll get into the article I found that solidifies that. So take a look at this one.
I want to say one more thing. You touched on, you were talking about the military doing studies. So I actually work with sports medicine doctors, and one of our doctors is doing research and study on sickle cell, and he was prior Army, but he works for the Army now. So there is research going on out there.
Good.
Behind the scenes.
So I saw this article last week that was published last week that says that the U.S. Army is now testing, and has been since November, testing for sickle cell trait. And I think that is just, of course, absolutely awesome. And it gives not only the military the information and to share with their soldiers, but it also gives the military the chance to address it and recognize sickle cell trait related symptoms before before it becomes fatal.
And this is actually, I guess it's perfect timing because I was actually talking about this with my brother back in November when I was in the hospital, and he was telling me, that the Army had started doing that because, some people don't know, but my brother does have the trait and he's in the military. And I had a talk with him sometime like, years ago. And I asked him if ever, because he was 82nd Airborne, which is, they jump out of the planes and stuff. So I asked him if there was ever a time where he felt, any of the symptoms that we talk about with sickle cell trait exhaustion. And he was saying, there was one time when he was like doing PT or whatever, and he was like, he felt in that moment that if he didn't stop, something bad was going to happen. So the fact that they're addressing it in the military may help, in the military, help with the soldiers who don't know, especially. And then I guess maybe even when choosing an MOS, like maybe some things you can't do, some jobs may not be able to be done depending on the trade. I don't know, but it's just a stepping stone.
Right. And the article mentioned, and it wanted to clarify that having the sickle cell trait does not disqualify you from participating. It only allows you to, for one, recognize what's going on with your body and take precautions so that it doesn't come to something extreme. And I'm sure that's even an adjustment. You and I talk often about how people that get or catch chronic illnesses later on in life have a difficult time adjusting.
Accepting and adjusting.
Yeah, so I would think, especially, I don't know, but I would think that would be an adjustment as well. It's like, okay, I can't go as hard as I want to, or as hard as it's me, but I still have some type of get up and go about myself. So I think that's, like I said, I just think that's awesome. And even since November, they found that 2% of recruits have sickle cell trait. So,
and my dad, if I'm not mistaken, I think he found out in the military. I'm not sure. I have to double check that he had the trait. But you can tell him not to do anything. I still can't tell him not to do anything. If he's watching, I'm checking you out with my eyes.
And I'm not sick. I'm good.
She's good.
I'm good. I'm straight. So yeah. But that whole thing just leads us into the trait conversation that we were able to speak with Dr. Tomia Austin about just sickle cell trait in general, not just with the U.S. military, but in any type of strenuous activities. There have been football players, whether it's high school football, college football, NFL, even basketball. There have been people who pass away simply from sickle cell trait exertion. And one of the reasons that we had Dr. Tomia on, or Dr. Austin, I call her both, one of the reasons that we had her on is to educate people with the trait, because I feel like they don't get the proper knowledge that they should get.
I think so too, especially when my son has a trait, and I remember taking him to the doctor and they were like, oh, he didn't have to worry about that. I'm like, oh, you're so wrong. Please don't tell my son that.
Right. And that can be scary to someone who knows better. They honestly should be educated more on sickle cell trait so they can pass that on to their patients. But just because you don't have full-blown disease doesn't mean that you're completely out of
that you're in the clear
with sickle cell trait. So let's take a look at what Dr. Austin had to say.
So what are some of the common misconceptions around sickle cell trait?
If I may, I would like to just roll back a little bit and just say that Devart, he is a now retired NFL player. He's a wide receiver in the National Football League, and since retirement, which is probably now 7, 8 years, he's still in football shape. Okay. He works out regularly, and that's important because that leads into the answer of your question, the misconceptions. Unfortunately, providers are educated with the standardized medical school curriculum that studies sickle cell trait the equivalent of 5 minutes.
Wow.
In a typical medical school curriculum. So, as much as we bang our heads, and I am not a physician, I'm not a clinician, I'm a researcher, but they don't know what they don't know, and often they don't know that they don't know. Right. So, the misconceptions are what the aged researchers said, which is people with sickle cell trait live a normal life. They will have no issues. And the brief family planning advising is that there's the probability, which the statistic is 1 in 4 chance, but the probability is of having a child with sickle cell disease increases if you procreate with someone also with sickle cell trait. And that's pretty much the advising that happens. Although testing is now mandated, all newborn screenings test for sickle cell disease, and if trait is diagnosed, then you're usually a parent that receives a letter in the mail with 3 bullets, and that letter goes where? In the trash, in the kitchen drawer. And the next time that there is a mandated test is if they are going to the military or if they're going to play collegiate sports. So elementary school, high school, community sports, right. It's not there. There's no mandate. So knowing about sickle cell trait is usually a happening that happens when it's too late.
Yeah.
So I suggest anyone living with sickle cell trait or know someone that lives with sickle cell trait, check out the entire episode, because it was so much more than just trait exertion that was explained, and that people definitely need to be aware of. And like we mentioned earlier, with sickle cell trait, you just never know. With sickle cell disease, you just never know. But that's a whole nother, the As One Foundation, which is Devart Darling's foundation and who Dr. Austin works for, is an organization that completely focuses on sickle cell trait education. That is their dedication, that is their mission, to educate and advocate for sickle cell trait exertion. As you heard, or may not have heard if you listened to the whole thing, Devart Darling is a twin who lost his brother to sickle cell trait exertion playing football. And Devart Darling is a retired NFL player that started this in memory of his brother. So they really push hydration. Hydration should be for everybody, but it's especially important for those living with sickle cell trait or exertion. Like that's
number one.
That's number one. So
she mentioned too, like when your newborn gets tested and they send you a letter in the mail with just some very limited information. My son has a trait, and I never got a letter in the mail. I just know that he has a trait because of the science of it. Like, he has to. There's no other way.
Right.
But if you're one of those people who don't know the science of it and how the genetics work, and you happen to not get a letter, then you don't know.
Right.
And how are you supposed to move forward? And if you get a letter with 3 bullet points on it, that doesn't really tell you what to do, how to move on. And we're always talking about eradicating the disease. That starts with knowing whether or not you have a trait.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it used to be 1 in 13. African Americans had sickle cell trait, but now it's down to 1 in 12. So that number is getting smaller, and we want it to be bigger. So sickle cell trait education is like extremely important. Get in touch with the As One Foundation, Dr. Austin. Check out our previous episode because it's super, super important. So speaking of sickle cell trait, we have had an extensive relationship series. We went from just single life and dating with sickle cell, all the way up to marriage with sickle cell. And earlier this year, we talked about how we felt with dating
other people.
We talked about when to share if that we have sickle cell, when to ask for trait testing from someone that we're dating. We just really went into depth about this whole dating life with sickle cell disease.
Yeah. I think that was like my favorite show. What was your favorite?
I have so many favorites. It's like picking a favorite kid. I mean, because I love all of them for different reasons. And honestly, out of the relationship series, I really love the last one that we talked with Roy and Madrice LaBeach. They were married.
I was so sad that I missed that one because I was so excited to have a conversation with them.
Oh, and they
were on COVID.
They were awesome. They were absolutely awesome, Jennifer. They dropped a lot of gems. And I just love how they work with each other and their bond and their relationship. It was amazing. Y'all have to watch the whole thing, but check out these two clips that talked about the expectations and the needs of both someone with sickle cell and their partner. We can't just leave out the spouse because they don't have it. That's still a major part of the relationship and the support system. So check out these clips by Mr. and Mrs. LaBeach.
How does sickle cell play a factor in, I know men want to be that provider and that protector. How have you met your own expectations becoming a husband and father, even managing your health with sickle cell disease?
That's a great question.
I'm coming to you next.
I don't know if I can say I've met my own expectations. We've been married 4.5 years, and in the time that we've been married, we've definitely had some challenges. But I can definitely say that as far as my effort, I feel like I definitely meet my expectations as far as my effort goes. And unfortunately, with sickle cell, that's all you can control is your effort sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes things are just completely out of our control.
Yeah. I get it. Trust me. What about you, Madrice? I know you probably had expectations for, or maybe not, for a husband and father. Do you think that, for the most part, Roy has hit those expectations?
I do. Yes. We're really big on setting goals, like financial goals, lifestyle goals, and we're on track. I feel like we're just a little bit ahead of the time frame that I had before we even got married. So I have no issues. We've been able to accomplish a lot. We've been able to recoup after some of our setbacks quickly. So yes, I feel like we're doing great, especially when you take into factor our age. Despite any illness for our age where we are, I'm very happy and I feel like we're blessed. So when you do add in the fact that he is dealing with a chronic illness, I have no complaints.
So, Madrice, do you feel that he meets your needs, and what are your needs in the marriage that Roy accommodates?
So I'm big on stability, and I like to know that like the routine that we have is going to stay constant. So he's really good with that. Like even with the having his illness, I feel like we're still in a routine. Good. So and I like the traditional relationship standards where it's like you have your male roles and you have your female roles. I'm more so very traditional. So he is like that as well. So even when he is in pain, he is still able to take the lead, which works for me because again, I get stressed out like really easily. And it's great that even when he is not feeling his best, he is still able to play his position in our marriage and in our family. So that works for me.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. Y'all are just warming my heart tonight.
I think it was really cool that you hit on the whole point about having a routine.
Yes. Not only the routine, she emphasized how they're big with goal setting and how she felt like they were further along because of those standards and those expectations and those goals that they set with each other. I just had a really good time speaking with them. Like I said, I was taking notes, mental notes. Just and I think a lot of people, whether you have sickle cell or not, could gain a lot from the things that they shared. So they were just absolutely awesome. I got back home and my mom was like, they were really good. So shouts out to Roy Imageries, because that was just amazing. We talked before, especially in person, well, privately and on the show, about when do we tell people that we have sickle cell disease, or when to allow people into that space.
Into that, yeah. Because
Even,
it's like an intimate space to me, I mean, even though it's just, knowledge of a disease, it's still, to me, it's intimate knowledge that you may not need to know. And you know how private I am. So
yeah.
I think I may always struggle with that. Like, when do I tell someone?
Yeah. I guess for me, I gauge the person that I'm dating. I gauge where they are mentally, so to speak. Or I may drop like little gems to see if they can handle at this level, to see if they can graduate to the next level. Like how much
to spoon feed them at a time.
Exactly. Then if I just go into a crisis while we're together, then that just happens and it's surprise, this is what happens. But yeah, we've definitely discussed that before on our whole relationship series, even when we brought Greg on and got the male's perspective of dating with sickle cell. And we talked about whether or not to date someone else with sickle cell.
Yeah.
We stand firm and strongly believe that we should not.
Right.
You spoke about eradicating this disease. I personally don't want to bring anybody into this world with the crap that I go through.
Yeah, I mean, and I've had discussions with people who have sickle cell who are for dating other people with sickle cell and also for having children with them. And I've never really understood it. And I've really tried to get into their head and understand where they're coming from. And what I get most often is, well, I have it, so I'll be able to walk them through what they're going through. I'm like, okay, well, you can walk them through it, but you can't take their pain away. And you know what that feels like. Why would you want your child to go through what you go through? Why would you want your child to have to fight the same battles that you are fighting?
Right.
And I'm a mom of a child with the trait. And I knew he would have the trait. And I've been talking to him since he was a little baby, before he even thought about dating or anything. Like, don't bring no girl home with, what I'm saying? Just letting him know how it works. And if he has a cold or if he has a stomach ache, I want to cry, because I can't do anything about that. I can't take it away. I can't make it better. I can do certain things, but my God, if he was going through a crisis and there was nothing that I could do but hold his hand or rub his back, I would feel guilty. Yeah. And I would feel upset at myself for knowingly bringing in a child to this world with this disease, knowing what it does. So I'm so steadfast on that. I just don't understand.
Yeah, and I see the stress my mom goes through seeing me go through. I don't even tell her everything or every time when something's wrong, because it's a lot. It's a lot for me to
right.
deal with. I live with it every day, so it's a lot to me, and I hold it in when it comes to telling her because I don't want to put more on her. So I see the stress that it has on my mom. It impacts the stress that y'all know what I'm trying to say.
the stress that she has,
Yes.
it exacerbates that. I understand what you're saying.
Right. And then thank you, Jennifer. That's why we're here. And me and her have talked about, her and I have talked about, she's felt guilty for a long time for giving me sickle cell disease. It doesn't matter how much I say, Mom, well, you know, you can't do anything about that now, right? And I'm making it do what it do regardless. I'm 37. She still carries that guilt to a certain extent of giving me sickle cell disease. So it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
I get it. I completely get it.
I told my mom yesterday because I've been, still kind of struggling since getting out of the hospital. And I was like, I'm tired of this. Like, I'm so over it. And I was like, well, this is the life I chose. She was like, but did you choose it? I was like, no, but saying that makes me feel like I have control, even though I know that I don't have control. So she was like, whatever works, whatever you got to do, whatever you got to say.
It's like I must have been built for it or something.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like,
gotta have that mindset.
Gotta have that mindset. Otherwise, if your mind is weak, your body's gonna be weak. And I'm not trying to be even weaker in the body. Nope, and nope.
You just said a word right there. So even though we go through what we go through, there's no universal cure, but there are options. And we had Miss Constance Benson on to talk about her experience with Be the Match and her bone marrow transplant. Again, if you have not heard her story, please go check out our
Remarkable
with her, and she goes into detail about her story. But take a look at this Be the Match ad where she's gung-ho and recruiting bone marrow donors for people to be cured of sickle cell.
1 in 365 African Americans battle sickle cell disease. I was one of them. Life back then was painful. I was in and out of the hospital and had frequent pain crises. A blood stem cell transplant is the only cure for sickle cell disease. I was fortunate to find a perfect match in my younger sister, but many patients do not have a compatible donor in their families, and Black patients have only a 23% chance of finding an unrelated donor. More Black donors are urgently needed to help save lives. It only takes a simple cheek swab to join the Be the Match registry. Learn more about becoming a donor and access free patient resources by visiting endsicklecell.org today. You or someone you know could be the cure for a patient battling sickle cell, like me.
Oh yeah, Constance has, like I said, an amazing story. She's just one of many who have been cured of sickle cell disease. Her, Erin Washington, Christopher Lundy, they're all amazing. I call them post-sickle cell advocates. They talk about their experience with the bone marrow transplant. And in this particular episode, we do go into the bone marrow transplant. We talk about gene therapy. We talk about stem cell transplant and even the different treatments there are for sickle cell disease. So it's still nice to know that people are out there fighting for us and still fighting for a cure. We would love to have a universal cure, but this disease is not one size fit all. I personally don't believe there'll be a cure for it that's one size fit all. But, some people can tolerate it. Some people can't. Some people are eligible for it. Some people aren't. So you just got to know what's for you and what's not.
Yeah. And speaking with my favorite Dr. Miller, he was saying that he believes in the next 2 or 3 years, some of the therapies that are currently in the works now and people are, getting the word out will be a little bit more accessible. That is truly the case. And I trust his word. So that gives me hope for the many people who would want to be cured from having sickle cell.
Right, right. That's awesome to hear, especially from his perspective. You know, I have love for him too. I've never met him, but from what you tell me and the stories you share with me about Dr. Miller, he's awesome. So I'm really glad he shared that with you. So we also talk about not just cures, but we also talked about wellness. We had both Dr. Parnell Abraham, who spoke from a naturopathic viewpoint and shared some things with us. And we'll also, in a minute, share a clip about sickle cell and medical marijuana. But we often talk about how it's important. You know, these treatments are available, these cures are available, but we still have to know how to take care of ourselves at home and outside of the doctor. We need to be working with the doctor on our health. So just take a look at this clip with Dr. Parnell Abraham that kind of goes into detail. Again, you got to watch the whole thing and take notes, but check out this clip. Okay, so I have another question for people with vitamin D deficiency. I can't remember if it was African American people specifically or people living with sickle cell specifically, but we tend to have a vitamin D deficiency. So I spend most of my day outside. Is that enough to replace my vitamin D3 supplement?
Well, it helps, but I wouldn't say it's just enough because we do have to supplement. The challenge we have today is that the earth has changed. So we are not getting the vitamin and minerals from the land itself. So therefore, when you harvest anything within the ground, which is our agriculture, you're not going to get a balanced supplement of minerals in there, a balanced supplement of vitamins. So therefore, just eating the right way is not enough. You do have to do some additional supplement. And very often people with vitamin D deficiency, they do have to supplement with vitamin D. And I always suggest D3, not D2, because D2 is the most of a synthetic version. So you want to go with D3, which is more of a natural version of what your body accepts and what your body will process.
Okay.
So yeah, Dr. Abraham is a gem in the naturopathic medicine world. He himself has sickle cell disease. He has SS, which some see as but we know what it is.
Yeah.
But he has been able to keep himself out of the hospital following his regimen. His regimen is not everybody's regimen.
Yeah.
Like he mentioned in the episode, some of us can eat leafy greens all day and some of us can't. Some of us can take or eat things with vitamin A and vitamin K and some of us can't. So just like those treatments and cures, your wellness routine is not a one size fit all. You have to do what's best for you. Yeah. So
working alongside your physician, and sometimes you may have to adjust your medication in order to be able to follow some of the naturopathic remedies.
Right. It's really all trial and error. I can speak that from experience. It's trial and error to see what you can and can't tolerate. This year has definitely been a learning experience for me, just learning my body all over again. And learning what I can now tolerate and I can't. I don't know if anybody paid attention, but I'm gonna pat myself on the back for the weight loss that I've done this year. But it's not just been about the pounds. It's also been about the mental, the emotional, as well as my relationship with food and learning what I can tolerate and what I can't. The stronger medicine, the stronger pain medication really messes me up now. So I have to be careful on how much I take. I can't take as much as I used to. It's been a learning process all the way around. Not just learning sickle cell, not just learning my body, but just all the way around. It's definitely been a process.
But like just everyday living is an ongoing learning process. Things that used to work for you or used to serve you when you were, 27 years old they don't necessarily serve you when you're 37. Your body changes, your thought process changes, your stress levels change. I mean, we go through so much just as people, not even as people with chronic illnesses. And, then you add on this chronic illness that is not a one size fits all. We just have to constantly, take stock of what's going on with ourselves.
Right. Reassessments. That's what I call them. So we also had Dr. Rashawn Hodge. I love Dr. Rashawn.
Okay, maybe that was my favorite.
See? So that one, of course, again, is an absolute must watch because he dropped several gems. And if anyone has been kind of iffy about medical marijuana, he might solidify your reason as to just do away with it or to maybe try it. But we wanted to provide that alternative to our normal opioid prescription meds, just to inform you guys on the benefits and the efficacy of medical marijuana on not just sickle cell, but honestly, any chronic illness. So take a look at this this clip of Dr. Rashawn Hodge.
Get you started.
So for those who don't know, the difference between sativa or indica, does it matter what you take? For sickle cell, is one better than the other? Should people know exactly, is it like say I take a certain amount of opioids, should I take, sativa instead of indica if I have certain issues?
It's a great question. So medicine has taught us, tried to persuade us for their business. For their $1 trillion business, they try to say one size fits all. So when you take a Percocet, when I take a Percocet, you and I are going to have the same reaction, the same benefit. We're going to pass it. You and I are going to have a little bit of constipation. It's not going to affect our mood. So they think that it's one size fits all. They tried to sell that, and they sold it for decades. We know that everyone is different. So cannabis, there's a sativa, and then there's also an indica. But most cannabis now, smokable form, they're hybrid. So what you have to pay attention for as far as caretakers. So when you guys get your cannabis card, when you walk into a dispensary, the flower, if you get a pre-roll, or if you get an oil, or if you get candy, edibles, it's going to have a ratio of CBD to THC. So you have to pay attention of your ratio. So ratios start from 20 to 1, 20 CBD to THC to 1 to 3. So you need to know what works for your body. Everyone is different. It depends on what you eat, your makeup, gender, body fat. Everyone is different. So once you find out what ratio works for you, then you got to try all delivery methods. You need to use oil, sublingual, tinctures, edibles. You might want to inhale. You want to vape. You want to use topicals. You want to use patches. You want to use suppositories. So there's 5 different delivery methods of this great adaptogenic herb. So once you figure out what is optimal for you, what is most efficacious for you, then go for it.
Oh yeah, Dr. Hodge is absolutely amazing. He's a chronic pain doctor as well as a both sickle cell advocate and a medical marijuana advocate. He does not have sickle cell, but he understands chronic pain, and that's what his broken neck, I think it was, is what.
Yeah, I think that's what he said.
Yeah, in 2012 is what started him on. Started the chronic pain and what made me realize, hey, I got to get a grip because I'm going to deal with this the rest of my life. And it led him to becoming a medical marijuana advocate. I thought that was a really good question that you asked, Jennifer. Some people who are not familiar with marijuana may not know the difference between sativa and indica, but those of us who have at least researched it and know a little bit about it, that his explanation helped clarify some things. So
Yeah.
hopefully one day the whole US of A will legalize marijuana and not just
Criminalize it.
Yeah, let's go for that, because it's a healing plant. It may not be for everybody, just like we mentioned, and that's okay. Do what works for you. But those different strains, and he even goes into detail, because I asked what was the difference between medical marijuana and some stuff that a person can get from the weed man, from the plug. And he goes into details about how clean the medical marijuana is and exactly what is the difference. So please check that out and take some notes, and find him on Instagram. I believe it's Rashawn.Hodge MD, or just Google Rashawn Hodge and look at his website, Premier Chronic Pain Clinic. And he's a wealth of information. He's a gem to have around. So
and he's always willing to answer questions too. He's very down to earth. So you know how sometimes you don't want to talk to doctors because you don't feel like they'll listen. He's definitely not one who falls under that umbrella. He's like really round the way. So
yeah, like I said, I love his heart. He's just been absolutely awesome. So one of the things we do is our annual open mic with Mr. Dan Moore at the Apex Museum. And we brought our open mic to you guys. So we had Miss Taylor Richburg on and Miss Candace St. John, who is a nurse with sickle cell disease. She came and gave her perspective from the nurse's standpoint, because she sees both sides. She sees it as a patient and she sees it from the nurse's standpoint. And this open mic gives us the opportunity to not only educate people about sickle cell disease, but it also serves as an outlet for people. We talk about having some type of outlet. Poetry for a lot of people, or music for a lot of people, is an outlet, is how we deal with things, whether it's physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, it doesn't matter. Those types of avenues and self-care methods are extremely beneficial. So our open mic is just that outlet where we can do both. Educate you on sickle cell disease, and we can also just kind of pour out our heart. So take a look at this awesome poem that Candace did, where she just wanted to be kind of done with sickle cell and just the topic. She wanted to just let it all out and let it be and be done with it. So take a look at this.
And I was thinking that a lot of us won't be able to say that we survived, because there's cures technically, but for many of us, we can't go through that because we might not make it through. Right. So survive is like present tense for us always. Right. It's every day making a conscious decision to get out of bed. For me, putting on my uniform, swiping my badge, I'm surviving every day. I can't say I survived it because it's a daily thing. Right. Every day is not miserable, but it happens. So this piece is from my book of tears. It's called A Life in Crisis. I come in screaming. All I get is diluted morphine. See, fake smiles, hear IV pumps beeping. All the while my dreams are fleeting, anger seething, heart beating, a steady pounding of pain. The sludge that is my blood flushing these accursed cells through my veins. Pain shooting from my chest to my back. The only comforting thought is the next breath be my last. I've spent so many days barely existing, just struggling to get by. Talking to a God I barely believe in somewhere up in the sky. My most fervent prayers that I'd fall asleep and just die. But time and time again I wake up to the oh so real nightmare that I'm still alive. So I lay here, tears streaming from my eyes, your care desensitized, my dignity compromised, yet I patiently wait for a resolution to be devised. No longer will you ignore the cries of this lonely girl, invisible, misunderstood, trapped in a vicious cycle of pain, shame, and defeat coursing through my blood, half living like the half cells running through my veins. Try as I might, seems like all my efforts are in vain, taking 2 steps forward, only to be knocked back down again. I swear I can't win. I'm just trying to make sense of my life, desperately wanting to make the best of my life. This can't be life. Is this really it? What grim future do I face if this is my dismal present? What a present. What a gift, this gift of life I have playing. If only I could hit rewind and hit reset. Go back as a thought inside my parents' head and leave me there. Just as a thought instead of this. I look into the mirror and see a beautiful covering over a rotting corpse, steadily falling apart. Just take my arms and look at the marks. You can literally connect the dots to the hurt in my heart. I've never been whole. I'm more like a fraction, just a heap of parts. Bones breaking, body aching, daily getting worse, hence the curse. A broken spirit, a tortured mentality, a bruised soul barely existing due to a genetic technicality. Sliced cells running around my body, doesn't know what to do with them. Can't function due to a glitch in the system that leaves me sick, but at the end of the day, I refuse to be a victim. This thing that cripples me, yes, may even bind me, I promise you, it will never define me. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm a nurse, I'm a scholar, my thirst for learning never ends. I'm talented and beautiful, I'm more than what you see. I'm not a sickler, and I'm damn sure more than a disease. I march to the beat of my own drum, daring to cross the line. I would give up, but every time I look at the clock, it's just never been that time. When people look at me, a fighter is what they see. I say, don't be too impressed. I'm only strong because I have to be. So I live life freely, and I love aggressively. So no one can ever say that this disease got the best of me. Thank you.
That was really awesome.
Yeah, Candace is absolutely awesome. I love to hear her spoken word. Make sure you check her out at iam.csaint. Candace St. John, find her. She said you can find her on Amazon, iTunes, Facebook.
Yeah, she has a book on Amazon, so check that out, and it's wonderful.
Absolutely.
Candice, Candis, St. John.
Yes, or IMC Saint. So I want to personally thank all of our guests. We've had Greg Green, Dr. Austin, Constance Benson, Candace St. John, Dr. Rashawn Hodge, Dr. Parnell Abram, Roy and Madrice LaBeach, Shanta Nelson, Taylor Richburg, A.R. the Prophet, DeQuavia Shepherd, Tiana Dillard, Miss Jessica Pisu with Sisters of Yoga, who have all helped us deliver this year. It's been absolutely amazing. So I appreciate you from the bottom of, we appreciate you from the bottom of our hearts, and we love you. So
you made this first year the tops.
Right. It might be kind of hard to top this year, but that's okay. The next year is gonna be even better. So let's get into the sponsors before our last little bit. We want to thank the Apex Museum and Mr. Dan Moore. It will continue to be shut down until we get until we as a country come out of timeout. That's when we can go back to the Apex Museum. We want to thank Tanya Robinson and Kids Stop Daycare and Learning Center, who's still helping the kids out, taking care of the babies, and making sure that the school-age kids are getting the lessons that they're supposed to get. And we want to thank the Black Professional Network for all they've done. I want to end this on with this candlelight to recognize those warriors, not who have just passed this year, but just past period. I'm just going to call out the names. I don't have pictures of everybody, but just say a prayer for them, for their family. This year alone, we've lost Dr. Luther King and his wife Lois, who founded the Sickle Cell Foundation of Georgia. We've lost Miss Linda Jordan, Joelle Darbonnet, who was a huge advocate in the sickle cell community, as well as Elijah Powell, who was a graduate of Morehouse. We lost Skylar Slay, Bridget Wilkie, Vivian Whitfield Mack, Nikki Peterson, Evie Basin, CJ Sanders, Channing Slaughter, Shay Terrell, and so many more. So let's just take a moment to set one up for them, or two of them.
Yeah. They're down there. We're down here, but they're up there still working really hard.
Yeah. So we y'all
and watching over us, and
we use their spirit to continue the work that we do down here. It's because of them that we continue to do what we do. So I hope you guys have an amazing New Year's celebration. Celebrate just being here, just being alive. And we'll see y'all next year.
I wish I had a glass to cheers to 2021 being much better than 2020 for each and every one of us. I just pray for wonderful things to come for us, for our community, for the people who on our network, our producer, Jack, his family, just everybody, my mom, your mom, our families, just everybody. Cheers, guys.
Bye, y'all.
Yeah. Deadly combo. Black Prophet, Charlie Black, AR the Prophet.
AR the Prophet, Charlie Black, a deadly combination. Hold up, I don't think they heard me. I said, AR the Prophet, Charlie Black, a deadly combination. Hey yo, turn me up a little. We good. AR the Prophet, Charlie Black, a deadly combination. It's been long overdue, I know the streets been waiting. Which takes a lot of patience, cause you never rush straight. This one's for the record, but going down history in the making. AR the Prophet, Charlie Black, a deadly combination. It's been long overdue, I know the streets been waiting. Which takes a lot of patience, cause you never